All right, everybody, it's time to get started. I want to welcome y'all to our February work session. It sounds a lot like school. There's so many kids, it just sounds fantastic, and I just want to welcome each and every one of you here tonight. This is unusual. We don't typically do recognitions during the work session, but we wanted to do this because all of these teacher recognitions are really special to us, and we wanted to make sure that we left a lot of time to do that, and doing it tonight makes that possible. And so I'm going to get started in just by saying how proud we are of the Lanier Cluster. Councilmember Hicks and I, we spend a lot of time in our schools. I would say between the two of us, we are in a school or at an event at least one time a day. And I can't tell you how hugely impactful that's been to our life, just to see our teachers and our principals and our school counselors and bus drivers and you name it interact with our amazing kids in our amazing schools. And so we are just so thankful to have all of y'all here tonight. And then I want to let Alvin say something before we get to the proclamation part of this.
Thanks, Mayor Henry. This right here is really what community is all about, right? Having the opportunity to kind of look over here into the audience and see the kids and see familiar faces and see our educators and those that pour into our kids. And this is the reason why I do what I do, is because of what you guys and the amazing job that you guys are doing. So it's going to be an honor and a privilege to just honor you guys tonight. What the administration and what this Lanier Schools Cluster is doing is not something that is being recognized throughout Gwinnett County and throughout the state of Georgia, but this is something that is unparalleled to the education system as a whole, not just for the powerful things of what you guys are doing within your school system, but what you're doing across through the local government and partnering with us, as well as through our churches. So I'm so proud, so happy to see all of you guys here tonight, and just honored to be here to celebrate y'all.
All right, so we are going to honor 5 amazing teachers from the 5 Lanier Cluster schools. And one of the things that we did not mention, and we always say everywhere we go, every Lanier Cluster school is within the city limits of Sugar Hill. And that gives us an amazing opportunity to co-brand and to partner on activities that we do for our most important residents. And I like to use that phrase a lot. The kids in our schools are our most important residents. And so could not do that, obviously, without the teachers, especially these 5 amazing teachers. And so Alvin and I are going to come up, and we're going to recognize each of the teachers individually with a proclamation. We're going to read through each proclamation because they're written specifically for the teacher. And so just bear with us. There's a lot of whereases. Just be patient with us. And then when we get through that, I would like to ask City Council to come up and to get pictures with the Teachers of the Year. And then we're going to open it up to everybody here that wants to have pictures taken, because we've got a lot of parents and kids that wanted to come and honor their special teachers tonight. Alvin, are you ready to go up front?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. First on the list is someone that everybody brags about because she's an amazing math teacher. And I was not good in math at school, so. Carmen Hale Smith. Whereas Carmen Smith has been teaching 2nd through 4th grade advanced content math and enrichment math to Sugar Hill students at Sugar Hill Elementary School in Gwinnett County for 18 years and has 29 years of teaching experience. And whereas Carmen Smith is not only a 2nd through 4th grade classroom teacher, respected by both the school community and her peers alike, she has been recognized as Sugar Hill Elementary School's Teacher of the Year for 2024 and 2025. And by the way, she's one of the top 25 for Gwinnett County. Whereas Carmen Smith has spent endless hours in and out of the classroom teaching students and empowering them to think freely. She has helped her students develop skills such as questioning, provoking, and challenging all the things presented to them. And whereas she has engaged her students by producing innovative lessons that have real-life applications and has thus promoted learning to her students as a lifelong endeavor. And I happened to be in her class one day, and she had a piece of pie up on the board, and she was asking her students to learn how to do percentages, and I thought that was the most creative thing that I had ever seen. Whereas the purpose of the Teacher of the Year Award is to honor educators that have made an exceptional difference in the lives of their students and provided inspiration to their peers. It recognizes and promotes excellence in education in the Gwinnett County Public Schools and helps promote an educated and vibrant community. Now, therefore, the City of Sugar Hill Mayor and City Council do hereby acknowledge Carmen Hill Smith as the Sugar Hill Elementary Teacher of the Year for 2024-25 and encourage all its citizens to congratulate her on her accomplishments as one of Gwinnett County's finest educators. And then we're going to do,
Congratulations.
we're going to get all the other teachers up here, and then we'll take some pictures of them. We're going to change it up here because Alvin has a special teacher he wants to recognize. All right, next is Anne Marie Trent. From Sycamore Elementary School. Whereas Anne Marie Trent has been teaching 1st grade all subjects to Sugar Hill students at Sycamore Elementary School in Gwinnett County for 4 years and has 25 years of teaching experience. And whereas Anne Marie Trent is not only a 1st grade classroom teacher, respected by both the school community and her peers alike, she has been recognized as the Sycamore Elementary School's Teacher of the Year for 2024 and 25. And here you're going to see some of the same information repeated, but I want to just make sure that we read and honor everybody equally. Whereas Anne Marie Trent has spent endless hours in and out of the classroom teaching students and empowering them to think freely, she has helped her students develop skills such as questioning, provoking, and challenging all the things presented to them. And whereas she has engaged her students by producing innovative lessons that have real-life applications and has thus promoted learning to her students as a lifelong endeavor. And whereas the purpose of the Teacher of the Year Award is to honor educators that have made an exceptional difference in the lives of their students and provided inspiration to their peers, it recognizes, promotes excellence in education in the Gwinnett County Public Schools and helps promote an educated and vibrant community. Now, therefore, the City of Sugar Hill Mayor and City Council do hereby acknowledge Anne Marie Trent as the Sycamore Elementary School Teacher of the Year and encourages all its citizens to congratulate her on her accomplishments as one of Gwinnett County's finest educators.
Congratulations.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this teacher has a special place in my heart because she actually taught my son, Miss Emily Heck, who, along with Ms. Smith, is actually finished in the top 25. So I'm super proud. All right, whereas Emily Heck has been teaching K through 5th grade health to Sugar Hill students at White Oak Elementary School in Gwinnett County for 16 years. And has 28 years of teaching experience. And whereas Emily Heck is not only a K through 5th grade classroom teacher, respected by both the school community and her peers alike, she has been recognized as the White Oak Elementary School's Teacher of the Year for 2024-2025. And whereas Emily Heck has spent endless hours in and out of the classroom teaching students and empowering them to think freely, She has helped her students develop skills such as questioning, provoking, and challenging all of the things presented to them. And whereas she has engaged her students by producing innovative lessons that have real-life applications and has thus promoted learning to her students as a lifelong endeavor. And whereas the purpose of the Teacher of the Year award is to honor educators that have made an exceptional difference in the lives of their students and provided inspiration to their peers. It recognizes and promotes excellence in education in the Gwinnett County Public Schools and helps promote an educated and vibrant community. And now, therefore, the City of Sugar Hill Mayor and City Council do hereby acknowledge Emily Heck as the White Oak Elementary Teacher of the Year for 2024-2025 and encourage all its citizens to congratulate her on her accomplishments as one of Gwinnett County's finest educators. Congratulations. You want me to do two in a row? All right. And next up, we have Miss Catherine Duncan, Lanier Middle School Teacher of the Year. Whereas Catherine Duncan has been teaching 8th grade math to Sugar Hill students at Lanier Middle School in Gwinnett County for 7 years and has 10 years of teaching experience. And whereas Catherine Duncan is not only an 8th grade classroom teacher, respected by both the school community and her peers alike, she has been recognized as the Lanier Middle School Teacher of the Year for 2024 and 2025. And whereas Catherine Duncan has spent endless hours in and out of the classroom teaching students and empowering them to think freely, she has helped her students develop skills such as questioning, provoking, and challenging all the things presented to them. And whereas she has engaged her students by producing innovative lessons that has real-life applications and has thus promoted learning to her students as a lifelong endeavor. And whereas the purpose of the Teacher of the Year award is to honor educators that have made an exceptional difference in the lives of their students and provided inspiration to their peers, it recognizes and promotes excellence in education in the Gwinnett County Public Schools and helps promote an educated and vibrant community. Now, therefore, the City of Sugar Hill, Mayor, and City Council do hereby acknowledge Catherine Duncan as the Lanier Middle School Teacher of the Year for 2024-2025 and encourage all its citizens to congratulate her on her accomplishments as one of Gwinnett County's finest educators. Congratulations, Ms. Duncan. Thank you so much.
Next is someone that I admire very greatly because I appreciate the fine arts in our community, and that is Laura Wood from Lanier High School. Yes, Laura. I saw Laura earlier. She blended in with the crowd. Whereas Laura Wood has been teaching 9th through 12th grade orchestra to Sugar Hill students at Lanier High School in Gwinnett County for 4 years, and has 21 years of teaching experience. I'm going to add a little bit to this because she not only teaches students at the high school, she teaches students at every level because I see her at elementary school concerts, middle school concerts, and she's really truly touching every student that we have in our community. Whereas Laura Wood is not only a 9th to 12th grade classroom teacher respected by both the school communities and her peers alike, she has been recognized as the Lanier High School's Teacher of the Year for 2024-25. And in addition, she is also in the top 25 for Gwinnett County. Whereas Laura Wood has spent endless hours in and out of the classroom teaching students, again, at all levels of our school system. Whereas she has engaged her students by producing innovative lessons that have real-life applications and has promoted learning and the fine arts to many students in Sugar Hill. Whereas the purpose of the Teacher of the Year Award is to honor educators that have made an exceptional difference in the lives of their students and provided an inspiration to their peers. It recognizes and promotes excellence in education in the Gwinnett County Public Schools and helps promote an educated and vibrant community. Now, therefore, the City of Sugar Hill Mayor and City Council do acknowledge Laura Wood as the Lanier High School Teacher of the Year for 2024 and 25 and encourage all of its citizens to congratulate her and on her accomplishments as one of Gwinnett County's finest teachers. And we have several principals here tonight, and I would be remiss if I did not thank them for their exceptional leadership in our community. Nick Boyers, Kelly Scarborough, and Stacy Pickett. Oh. Dr. Bishop. We're glad to have you. Welcome to everybody. All right, so now we're going to do pictures, and I think that might actually be more challenging than anything that we've done up to this point, but we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. We've got so many kids here, just want to make sure that everybody gets in a picture. So let's call up all of the teachers of the year and City Council. Except
Mayor, I'm not very mobile tonight, so I'm going to thank everyone from here, and thank you for all your hard work.
All right, let's do individual teachers. We'll start with Ms. Heck. And then principal. Y'all like to come up?
You gonna hide behind us? Okay. You can't really hide.
I know. Hey, John. Absolutely. Yeah, and I said that word. Okay. So if that word, it is? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Carmen, do you want us to be in a picture, or do you want just a family? So either way. Also, thank you for letting me y'all are welcome to stay around.
There's park numbers too that mess it up. Hopefully it's only hopefully it's only yeah, that's a lot different now. There's 4 of them.
Did you say it was 6:20? What time is it? All right, we're going to wait just 1 minute, let Andy close that door. Yes, sir. All right, thank all of y'all for doing that tonight. We've got 6 from the North Gwinnett cluster next Monday night, and it was just a lot to do all at one time. We wanted to make everybody feel special, so thanks for doing that. All right, so we're just going to move on. We're going to move on and start talking about new business. And items 1 and 2 are the 2 vetoes. Jane, do you want to talk about the process at all? I know we ask you to do that every time, but...
At the jail. Process is council provide the veto. Same name. For the March 10th. I mean, language of the charter, the council the action of the appointments, affirmative vote of not approved by appointments will post.
All right, thank you, Jane. Any questions of Jane about the process for those 2? All right, next we'll move on to item number 3. Gary, that's yours.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we passed a moratorium on development apartments downtown to consider whether they should be allowed as currently as a use right or whether it should require a special use permit and a vote of the council on that. The timing was such that it would have gone to the Planning Commission meeting this month, which, as you all know, was delayed by weather. And so instead of them rescheduling that, I assume due to advertising timelines and that sort of thing, it's all just been pushed to March. Therefore, I'd like us to extend this moratorium until we have such time to consider that change that's working its way through the zoning board. And I believe I asked Mr. Hartley to work on that. I think it said until the May meeting is when it will be extended to. So that's all I have on that, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Gary. Any questions? Do you think we'll get the Planning and Zoning Commission action by next month, Art?
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
No worries. All right, we will move on to item number 4. That's Planning Commission reappointments for posts 1 and 2. And there's not a name associated with that, but anybody want to take that item next Monday?
I was going to say, I guess I will, since I had talked to the post 1 and 2 members, Rosemary Walsh and Jason Jones, and their term ended 12/31/24, and both members expressed their interest to serve for yet another 3-year term on the Planning Commission. I guess we would go ahead at the February meeting and just officially, formally extend give them another term for 3 years on the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Meg, and thank you for taking the item. Any questions of Meg? All right. Next, we'll just move on to work session discussion items. And so this is kind of like a new format that Jane and I talked about, and I think it actually works better than putting them under city manager discussions. So I hope that that's all right with everybody. But first one is for me. That's the letter to County Commissioner Holtkamp regarding Sugar Hill Library, and I just wanted to officially bring that forward and just to check in with everybody on it. I think I made the changes that Gary suggested, and Meg suggested, and Meg, if I made any grammar errors, please let me know. I tried to fix that first sentence for you, but again, I'll just talk very briefly about it since this is the first time we've brought it forward. But the Gwinnett County Public Library System, they did a master plan in 2021, and in the plan they identified that Buford needs a new library or a renovated library, and Sugar Hill could potentially use a library of its own. Commissioner Holtkamp reached out, has an interest in possibly utilizing SPLOST funds to do that type of project. It could be under the existing SPLOST if there's excess funds, or it could be in a future SPLOST. And he just wanted us to do a letter asking the county to consider that whenever it's appropriate for the county. There's no commitment on our part to anything. All we're doing is just asking them to consider including a project like that in their SPLOST list, again, now or in the future. And so, any questions about what we have? I will maybe formally put it on in March if that's okay. Okay, good deal. All right, next we'll move on to Meg for item number 6, and that is the policy for travel, training, and education.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I had brought up these expenditures during our budget talks last year when we were setting aside funds for these departments for the 2025 budget. And one of the things I look at, we're always wanting to provide transparency for our citizens, and I know that we have the budget online, but when you look at the budgeted amounts, and for example, for 2023, what was actually spent for both the travel in all departments and the training and education in all departments was $77,781. And then for 2024, as of October of 2024, $63,205 had been spent in both the travel and the training and education departments. We have budgeted for 2025 $130,950 for these amounts. And I certainly do agree that training and education is vital, as we had discussed, to keep our employees, to keep our council up to date with the latest government changes, classes, seminars. Those are vital to keep us current. Just like we had the Teachers of the Year here tonight. They take professional staff development as well. And that happens here too. It's interesting that with one of the reasons I thought of this, I'll just backtrack, is because our youth council gives us a travel report on their annual trip to Washington, D.C. If a resident were to ask me how these funds are spent and what they're spent for, I would have to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I like to have a little bit more of a definitive answer than that. And I think that it would be a really good idea for not only the youth council, but all of us should know we're deciding, yes, this money is going to be spent. We don't know how it's spent. And when we reviewed so many items in the budget last year, that was kind of a stumbling block. Okay, so we're agreeing to this, and this amount is being appropriated, but we don't know the specifics of it. And I think it's important for at least the mayor and council to know those specifics. So that's why I would like to propose a travel, training, and education policy. I would like that to consist of that all department heads must provide a report to the city manager with a summary of where the travel was, for what purpose, and to include the benefit of that seminar or conference or meeting. If an employee within a department travels, he or she should provide a report to the department head, who in turn can provide this report to the city manager. This report must be included by the city manager as part of his monthly report at the council meeting. I think that would be very beneficial to know this information. The city manager, assistant city manager, city clerk, mayor, and council members will also be responsible for providing this type of travel summary as part of their monthly council report. The mayor and council must be informed of anyone who attends a training education session, the location and what type of certificate was earned. There have been a couple of times last year I've heard, oh, so-and-so got this certificate. And, but I don't know, since the travel is one category, training education is another, sometimes a certificate is earned. And I would think that we should be aware of that. And when someone does get a certificate or whatever is bumped up, has another benefit to, they've learned something else to benefit them in their employment, we should know about that. I would just like the city council to be more informed and aware. So as far as certificate, what type, the city manager could include this in his monthly report as well. Any board member who completes a travel, education, and/or training session must also submit a summary report to the city manager to be included in the monthly report. Travel, training, and/or education which requires a flight out of state must be either, this would be up for discussion, either approved by the city council or prior notice given to the council at least 2 to 4 weeks in advance. And then, since we did have budget cuts, airfare for a basic, economy, or main seat on a flight is paid for by the city. But the additional expense of either comfort, business, or first class would be the responsibility of the employee. And that's basically, in a nutshell, what I think needs to happen. As our city grows, we have more employees than ever before, and I think it's a good idea to have some expectations of, we want to know, we should know who's traveled, who did who went to a seminar. I know there were some last year that we just kind of heard about, but that was all. And I would like the council members to be more aware and informed of that. And therefore, if having it included in the monthly report also informs our citizens and lets them know what their tax dollars and how our budget funds are being spent in these two departments. And that's what I would like to propose for discussion, certainly not for a vote next week. It's under work session discussion items, the right place for it. And we can all share what do we think about this, and maybe have it be on a consent agenda for a formal travel and training and education policy. And I'd like to hear any comments or questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Meg. Any questions or comments? Yes, Gary.
I agree with what you say. Certainly, we're budgeting a large amount there that's not insignificant, but I won't necessarily say it's inordinate, but we don't really know because we don't get insights there. I would particularly like to know in some of the report we get, do we have like a few members that are going to multiple classes, or is everyone going to some class? Just kind of what's the breakdown of that, right? Because I think everybody could benefit from some training. So I'd just like to get a better idea of what is it we're spending on. Is that being distributed throughout the organization? And sometimes you may want to send one person, have them come back and train the others what they've known, as opposed to sending all of them. But just like to get a better insight on what it is that we're getting out of this, and to know then going forward whether that budget amount is right, whether too high or potentially too low. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Taylor?
Since this is the first presentation of it, Meg, if you could email that out to all of us so that we can,
And I apologize, I didn't get
that's
to
okay.
that sooner.
No worries. Yeah, if you
Absolutely.
could, yeah, that'd be great. That way I can give it some more consideration. I have some initial thoughts, but I'd rather read through it again and give it a little bit more time. So that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
I think Taylor really kind of hit it on the head. It'd be really kind of good. But Meg, in addition to what you're asking for from the department heads, is the expectation of council, if there is training and all of that, would be the same requirements that you're asking of them would be of council as well?
Right. Like last year, Gary, Josh, and I went to the training for newly elected officials in January, and I mentioned that in my report. So yes, and I would include mayor and council in that. To have more open and more transparency, absolutely, yes.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. I think this is, thank you for bringing this up, Meg. I think it's a good thing to look at and to really consider, just, something likened to what our federal government's doing right now, seeing how we can become more efficient and really be good stewards at the end of the day of the resources that we are asking of our residents, AKA our taxpayers. So I think however we can do that and become more transparent, and much like Gary said of, who are we sending? Are we sending department heads every single time? Are we sending our new folks who've been here for a year, or, is somebody coming back and almost a train the trainer aspect, if you will, of are we sending one and we're having a training class? And then what does that really look like? And then what are we benefiting from? Are we going to conferences to network, or are we actually going to training classes at the end of the day? So just kind of give us insight, and not necessarily to know offhand if a resident were to ask us, but just so we have the knowledge of where are our resources being spent and what is our city doing and what are our employees doing. So.
All right, good. I think I've heard from everybody. Anybody else, additional comments or questions? All right, well, let's move on to item number 7, and that is the procurement policy. Meg?
Okay, this is actually the 2014 procurement schedule that I did email out to everybody today. And I had been looking over that, and I noticed on there that under the discussion of this procurement, purchasing, and travel rate schedule, that was the staff recommendation to provide a comprehensive revision to the policy in 2015. And so now that 10 years have gone by, I think it might be time to have a good discussion and debate about the procurement schedule. The financial policy that the city has does discuss the purchasing policies in page 10 to 12. I sent everybody a very lengthy document that the Johns Creek Council adopted as their purchasing policy, as well as some guidelines from the Georgia Municipal Association. And this is going to take a while because it's a lot, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's accounting, it's council, city manager, but I think there are some basics that we need to look at in the procurement method, and the approval requirements, the travel and expense rates, which probably have changed since then, and the exceptions. So what I'd like to do is, if you all have the procurement method in front of you, the procurement method, I don't really have any changes to the procurement method. I don't know if anybody else does. Yeah. Here. Okay, let me pull up mine. Under approval requirements, I'm proposing some changes in the approval requirements. My change basically in the approval requirements, we've been very tight with the budget this year, which and we've had some cost-cutting measures. And we're all a little bit more budget conscious as a result of the discussions that we had last year. And I think we all need to be more aware, more cognizant, and more informed of what's being spent. And my recommendation is to change under city manager budgeted item to possibly $40,000 or $45,000, and for unbudgeted, $25,000 or $30,000. Those would be my recommendations. And then the only recommendation I have under exceptions, I spoke with our city attorney, Frank Hartley, and this is something that can be included under this policy, that the city attorney must review any contract of, I'm proposing $40,000, of $40,000 and above, and provide his input to the city council. There are several cities that require their city attorney to review all contracts. And we have lots of contracts that only involve maybe a couple $1,000 or $5,000 or maybe $10,000. We have a much larger city hall now, many employees. There's a lot that goes on with a contract. And with today's technology, with the cost involved, I think we need to have more eyes on our city contracts. And that's why I would like to include under exceptions that the city attorney must review any contract of $40,000 and above and provide his input to the city council. The travel and rate expense rates that are on there, Cindy, you would know more about that than I would. That's why I'm saying that this is an effort that involves, staff and mayor and council. Those are the most important recommendations that I have at this point.
Meg, could you talk, and there's a lot of information here, and I didn't get a chance to read everything today. I had to work today, but can you talk again about the numbers that you were proposing for the approval requirements?
Right. Under approval requirements, I would like to change the city manager budgeted amount to either $40,000 or $45,000, and for unbudgeted, $25,000 or $30,000.
And when you say change, do you mean change 25,000 to 40,000?
Yes. The highest amount, instead of $99,999, it would be either 40 or 45 for budgeted. And then under unbudgeted, instead of $49,999, it would be either 25 or 30,000.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification. And I'd love to look at it, and I think any policy proposal needs to be in writing, and I'd love to look at it in writing. But I would have some concern about changing for budgeted, just simply because when we approve our budget, that is a policy that we're setting, and I don't really understand why we need to be duplicative, and we would be approving a budget multiple times, essentially. And so also would have some concerns about some types of contracts having to come to city council and getting bogged down by city council because of one person that might have a concern about something. And so vendors are only able to say what their prices are for a certain amount of time. I think there needs to be a little bit of flexibility. We have professionals in place, and we should expect that they're going to do the right thing. And I think 99.9% of the time they do the right thing, and they never intentionally do anything wrong. But I think we're micromanaging a little bit, and we need to lead and let others lead in our organization. And so I might have some concern about making that change.
Do you mean about the city attorney?
No, oh no. I'll be honest with you, I don't think there needs to be a dollar threshold on the contract. I think every contract needs to be viewed by the city attorney. I do not have a problem with that at all. I don't even, I mean, that's just good practice, yeah. And I mean, I'm not speaking for Frank, but yeah. And again, I haven't looked at everything in totality, and so it'd be great to see it on paper, and I could make some better comments on it. I might understand it better, but Taylor?
As far as the policy itself goes, are we asking staff, are we giving direction to staff to actually develop a new purchasing policy? Or are you wanting us to first give you some feedback and then direct staff? Or from a process standpoint, what's your desire?
I think the first thing to do is to look at the 2014 procurement, purchasing, and travel rate schedule and start there. I think we would need to ask Cindy, the financial policy that we have for the city of Sugar Hill was established in 2003. It might be a good idea for city staff to review that and say, okay, that was several years ago. Is there anything else in the financial policy that needs to be changed in addition to this 2014 procurement, purchasing, and travel rate schedule? Because it does mention in there that it is the staff recommendation to provide a comprehensive revision to the policy in 2015. So I'm assuming that means the financial policy, but it could also mean just the procurement, purchasing, and travel rate schedule. But I'd like to at least start with the this schedule.
You're talking about the one, with this one right here?
Yes.
That we're talking about?
And up on the top, it's
Right.
labeled
Yeah,
May
yeah.
14 procurement.
Okay.
So if we could start there, that would be a good start to, and then if need be, on the advice of city staff, city manager, let us know. You know, since our financial policy has not changed at all since 2003, there might be more sections of that that need to be revised.
Then, as far as the numbers go, I mean, I don't know how much inflation has gone between 14 and now, which is probably somewhere in the 30 to 35% range, if I had to guess. I mean, those numbers have already been reduced by inflation a significant amount already. $100,000 in 2014 is probably somewhere in the $65,000 to $70,000 range in today's world. So I share the mayor's concerns over reducing those numbers just because it becomes burdensome to both city staff and to the vendors that we're trying to procure services from. And oftentimes that may lead to actual price increases in their services, because if they're having to wait weeks, potentially months to get their contract signed, that's really tough to plan for from their workload standpoint. So I think our current approval requirements with the numbers that are in there from 2014, at least at first glance, seem to be appropriate. But I'm going to rely on staff and also have some questions for Paul as far as the number of contracts we sign. I mean, as much as I'm sure Frank would be more than happy to review contracts at his hourly rate, I think there's probably some room. I'd like to know how many contracts, and you don't have to answer now, Paul, but that would be something I would like to know, is how many contracts actually come through through the city, and what that means from a budget impact standpoint from our attorney fees I'd like to know that before we move forward on that. But those are my initial thoughts. I don't have any. I think it's a good idea to update our procurement policy and probably at the very least restate it from a 2025 standpoint. I think that's probably an appropriate thing to do. And certainly going through it is a very reasonable thing, because obviously a lot has changed in 20 years. So, but anyway, that's all I've got.
Thank you. And I'll just add one other thing too. It may actually be a good time to update the procurement methods to dollar amounts, because I think the General Assembly is and I think it's for construction contracts. I think they're going to raise it from 100,000 to 250,000 just to again reflect where inflation is. But all good points that you've made. So, Josh.
Yeah, no, thank you, Meg, for bringing this up. I think it is time to update both the policy and this rate schedule here for procurement. I think one thing I would like us to keep in mind is sometimes we have to slow down in order to speed up. And a lot of times I sign contracts on a daily basis in my profession. And, you know, when we get in a routine of signing contracts quickly and pushing them through, things are missed. I'm fully in favor of paying Frank whatever we need to pay Frank to review every contract, just in case we're not missing something. There's no need to put the city in jeopardy whatsoever to put them in front of Frank. And, you know, looking at our other sister cities in Gwinnett County and also in other major metro Atlanta counties, they use consent agendas, and they have lots of budgeted contracts on their consent agendas every single city council meeting, and I have never seen us do that. And that's just the transparency part that I believe we truly owe our tax-paying residents at the end of the day, that they should know what kind of contracts are coming through here, no matter if it's, you know, $14,000 or if it's $143,000. We should know what kind of contracts that our city staff, as much as I want to trust our city staff, and I want to know what contracts our city staff is signing on our behalf at the end of the day. And that's just my 2 cents there. So thank you, Meg, for bringing this up. I mean, I'm you know, willing to look at the approval requirements to see if we can all kind of align our heads there and what that looks like, and really lean on staff and lean on GMA and lean on Frank and what a updated 2025 policy looks like going forward. You know, I'm not saying that I'm the financial person that we can sit up here and dictate that going back and forth, but you know, maybe we can rely on those sources and come up to you know, what does that look like for a couple first drafts for us to review.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, can I just make a comment to follow up on your comment earlier about essentially the numbers that are listed under the procurement method for competitive steel bids and competitive steel proposals. Currently, there are 2 numbers in state law. One is for transportation projects, and that number for transportation projects is anything $200,000 and above is required to be bid. There's a separate number for public works construction contracts. That number is at $100,000, has been for years. The legislature, not in 2024, but I think in 2023, actually passed a bill to update that to either $250,000 or $300,000, but the governor vetoed it. And so, as you mentioned, there is a bill that has been dropped for this current legislative session to take that to $250,000. So yet to be seen, but just a little bit of background information for the council on those numbers, that there are currently 2 different numbers at state law, either 200 or 100, but there is a proposal. Now, the last time the governor vetoed it, he vetoed it because there's a similar requirement for the state of Georgia, and the legislature only updated the local government number, did not also update the state number, and so he vetoed it because he felt that the state and local government should have the same number. I haven't seen the bill for this year, so hopefully that was heard in his previous veto, and the bill this time actually includes both. But as I said, I've not seen it, so I don't know. But just a little history and background there.
I had forgotten that story, and you're correct, and the new bill does have the state and local connected, so good deal. All right, anything else on that? So we're kind of giving some direction to staff to kind of pull together something based on the conversation that we've had, so that we can see something on paper. Okay. All right, next we'll move on to item number 8. Gary?
Thank you, Mayor. It was brought to my attention a couple of months ago that we have several accounts delinquent in property taxes going back multiple years. I guess to the time when the city started doing the building. Certainly there's transition period when that sort of thing happened. And maybe some things slipped through the cracks that we need to correct now. I brought it up with the staff and was told that there were letters going out to the delinquent accounts. Talking with Miss Avery this week, I don't believe those letters had gone out, at least as of last week. We've got some of these accounts, $30,000 or more arrear in taxes. What I'd like to do, if we have a policy, I've not seen it. If we have a policy, it's either not a very good one or we're not following it. If we've allowed it to get that many years and that many dollars behind on certain cases. Relative to the whole, I think it's a small number, but obviously we want to make sure we're collecting the taxes that are due there in order to keep it low on everybody else. What I'd like to do is to have the staff either find and update a policy that we may have or present to us a new policy that would be something along the order of once you're delinquent 30 days, a letter goes out letting people know that they either need to pay the amount owed or come to the city and arrange a payment plan. If those 30, and give them a period of time, say 30 days or whatever, to comply with that. If that has not happened by the end of that time period, a second letter should go out also noting that there had been no payment or arrangements made. And then after a next period of time, we need to file tax liens on these properties. If we were still going with the county doing the building, and I understand the reasons that we're not, but if we were, we're sort of a small drop in what happens. If somebody owes us $10,000, they probably owe the school board and the county $40,000, $50,000 or way more than that. So we kind of got the effect that they were taking care of this for us as part of the service we paid for. And so either we need to come up with a plan to make sure we collect these taxes on our own, or we need to consider going back to the county to have them do that billing for us. There will be cost involved in doing collections, whether it's staff time, attorney time, sending letters, filing liens or whatever, that may be offset against the counties. And I'm not particularly advocating that we have to go to the one. I just think that's a service they provide that would remove that from us. But I'd like the staff to look over this and bring us back something to next month's council meeting that says, here's what we believe we can do to make sure we don't have these issues. You know, and I suspect for the most part it's a fairly innocent thing that they're getting a different bill and maybe it went to the wrong address or whatever. But if they haven't paid in the last 3 years, they either don't know it or they're willfully doing it. And I doubt it's willful because they're paying their county taxes or they would already had the property liened or sold by now. So again, I just think it's some things that need to be cleared up, but I'd like to have a formal policy around that. So that's my suggestion that that the staff draw up some terms and we discuss it next month.
Appreciate it, and I might 100% support it. I might get some information from you because maybe we could talk and I could understand the situation a little bit better. And I'll just say, I wasn't mayor at the time, but I was part of city council when we broke away from the county. And all of y'all know that story. I mean, she was going to, charge a fee to every resident in Sugar Hill to put into her own compensation. And I don't know how many cities stayed. I think maybe a couple cities ended up staying. But every other city in the county broke away. It was just not something that we could tolerate, to be honest with you. Yeah, no doubt. But things have changed at the tax commissioner's office since then. So good point to raise. Any questions or comments? Yes, Josh.
This might be a question for Frank or for Paul. Are we as a city able to do almost a city hall auction sale for tax levies? I know I've participated those across the state and purchased, but I've never attended a city one. I've attended county ones.
Yeah, the city has the same ability and parameters for collecting taxes that the county does. And so the city can place property tax liens on a property in the real estate records. The city can sell properties at tax sales just like the county does. So absolutely.
All right, Meg?
I do have a couple of questions. I agree that I think we need a timeline, that if the 24 taxes have not been paid, were due on this date. If they have not been paid by this date, letter number 1 goes out, and letter number 1 says, we've noticed you have not paid your tax bill, and you have until this day to pay. We do have a commercial account in town that owes us $40,000, and for 3 years. So I'm guessing they have not paid 24 yet either, so that bill is probably higher. And I don't know if with any of these, and sending out letters and certified mail, I don't know if there's any recourse, since we do have city court every month, if maybe placing a lien is not enough. I don't know if there's any other recourse, because somebody might think, well, okay, so there's a lien, and a lien can last a while. And I don't think we as a city want to take over somebody's business. So I don't know what recourse we have if somebody has not continued to pay in spite of phone calls, they're just not paying. So other than a lien, what else could we do?
I believe at that time, that'd be where the tax sale would come in that we would do.
Yeah, so if it's property taxes, you don't have the ability to cite someone to your municipal court for not paying your property taxes. For property tax liens, you file a lien in the real estate records, and then you would move forward with a tax sale, sell the property on the courthouse steps, city hall steps for a tax sale, and then and you start it obviously at the amount, you start the bidding at the amount of taxes owed, and then if somebody buys it at the courthouse steps, then you get paid your taxes, and then the owner would be entitled to, or other lien holders would be entitled to excess tax sale proceeds. If it's occupation taxes, then that's a different situation. So occupation taxes, so your gross receipts tax, then you could use your municipal court for occupation or gross receipt tax, but you cannot use municipal court for property taxes. So it depends on what kind of taxes you're talking about.
So just to be clear, I don't want to get to the point where we're taking property, and I think by being more proactive, we don't get to that. But also, that's why I think potentially we should look at being part of the county, because again, that's a much larger part of the bill that goes to the county. We're 3 whatever mills, they're 12 mills, school board's 20 mills, so we're small fish in this, and they already have those processes in place to do that. But I think when there's a larger amount due, to the extent someone's able to pay, they're likely to pay it. Then if it's a small amount, maybe potentially it's ignored. But again, my hope would be never to get to that point of doing those. And I believe also in the event of a tax sale, they have an opportunity to redeem that property for something like up to 10 years by going back and paying. Or maybe it's 5.
I believe it's 1 year. 1 year to redeem it, but in order, so they have technically under the law 1 year to redeem it, but the person who bought it at a tax sale actually has the affirmative duty to, after a year, cut off their redemption rights. So the person who buys it at tax sale has to send them a letter and follow the process to cut off their redemption rights. If they don't, then that time frame can get extended. But under the statute, after a year, you can send them a letter saying you need to redeem it. If you don't, then it becomes mine. And so that's a very complicated process, but it's all laid out in statute.
All right. Anybody else? I think we've given staff some direction and they know what to do next. All right.
When I was looking through the financial policy, I did not see anything in that specifically addressed delinquent taxes. So that might be something to look at in the financial policy as well.
Got it. I'll leave that up to staff, and I'm sure they'll do a good job with it. All right. I think that's it under work session discussion items. Now we'll move on to city manager discussions. And Art, are you going to give an update on the residential driveway policies?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As I jump completely over Paul, but we'll go to Art and then I'll.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Just a brief recap. This is a brief overview of staff's proposal to Mayor and Council in regards to residential driveways. Mayor and Council may remember a few months ago that was a matter of discussion, and we are bringing that back before the Mayor and Council primarily to make sure that you all are okay with staff getting this back on track, if you will, and having that go to Planning Commission for advertisement and review, and then thus on to the council. Just briefly, what we are looking at wanting to do is to simplify some of the residential driveway components and to have some better parameters in regards to certain items therein, particularly with gravel driveways. For example, currently gravel driveways are permissible. However, we have a few missing items in that regard, specifically having barriers for the gravel so that the gravel does not get strewn in the yards and so on and everything. So we're wanting to kind of clean that up, if you will, and be able to have some better direction for our citizens, and that way staff, including codes enforcement, will be able to give better direction to our citizens. So just briefly, and I'll skip down to, let me stop at this slide for just briefly. So we looked at some of our neighboring communities to see where they are with some of their coverage percentages in regards to yard coverages. And so you can see that the numbers are 30, 35% generally, and there's a mix of whether or not gravel is allowed in some communities. It is allowed in some and not in others. So we wanted to just to show that briefly, just as a to see how we align with our neighboring, some of our neighboring communities. And I'll just briefly go over this particular slide. So the regulation summary really would be to consolidate into a single section, preserving the intent of the existing requirements and simplifying and updating the standard to require a maximum of 20% coverage for the entirety of the lot. Currently, there is a percentage for the side yards, there's a percentage for the front yard, and so, and I believe that amount right now is 35% on the yard, on the sides, and then 20 on the front. And so it's what we want to be able to do is to combine those, make it a bit more simplified, and have a number that we think is still reasonable for citizens, yet not having excess coverage with driveway space, parking pad space, and so on. Looking at allowing permanent gravel driveways, and this is these are some of the items that we are proposing to have as standards, that we have a minimum of a 1/4 inch gravel that's at least 4 inches in depth with a compaction area per the supplier's recommendations. A durable border, which is what I was mentioning earlier, constructed of wood, concrete, brick, stone, extending a minimum of 1 inch below the depth of the gravel, again, to be able to keep that contained well on the site and within the parameters of the drive itself. And then the aprons shall comply with city standards. So this is just a red line of what the staff has proposed right now, and we'll email this to council so that you have a better chance to review in more detail. But that is got a couple different sections. We broke it up a little bit right there just to make sure it was hopefully a little bit more readable. But that is generally what staff is proposing, and we wanted to see if Mayor and Council was okay with staff getting that, again, back on track, if you will, with advertisement to the Planning Commission and thus the Mayor and Council in the coming spring.
Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I do appreciate that you went through and did a summary of this for us, but I'd like to see the text in the whole just to see how it fits together. And then in addition to that, it mentioned in the email, and I guess what's printed here, the outline in red, which I did see you had highlighted red text there, but everything we got was only black and white, so we couldn't see what those changes were. So I don't know if that works to make sure we need to get a color copy, or the email at least conveys the red or the highlighting or whatever, but I could not follow it from the email to
Okay.
understand what those changes were. So if you could send that out, but also the whole text. And I do, again, I appreciate the summary, because that'll help us focus in on the area, but I like to see how it flows into everything else.
We're happy to do that, yes, sir.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else have questions or comments? You got to be more clear than ditto. Sorry.
I agree. What we were providing in our packet was not what was represented to us on the actual slideshow. So we see redlining, and I don't see redlining in the packet. So I have no clue. I mean, this looks like the exact same thing we were looked at in December. So it just doesn't look like, I don't know what was changed. So I would like to see what Gary asked for.
All right, so I'm just going to make a comment because I don't want us to have to keep bringing this back month after month and us never make any progress on it. So I want to just talk about I think the best way to handle this from a next step standpoint. You can send your recommendations out to us in a PDF or something where we can see the red and the color differentiation. Is that okay? And then we don't have a forum like at our regular meetings to kind of have discussions like this. Do y'all want to talk about it again next month? Is that okay? Yeah? And maybe whatever we receive from Art individually, y'all can kind of chime in if you have additions, and maybe that way we'll kind of help move it along a little bit quicker. Any other questions or comments about what Art has presented tonight? Art, thank you to you and your team for being patient with us and kind of moving forward and making changes, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We're happy to get those amendments and add those clarities to the council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, Paul, I'm going to hand it over to you for updates.
We will have a bid opening on Thursday at 2 p.m. in the community room for this year's LMEG funds. Good news is we had a number of people come in and pick up bid documents. Hopefully that translates into bid submissions to give us a lot of options. But once the bids are in and open and staff has confirmed them, we will be ready to make a recommendation to the council for approval at the March meeting. Any questions on?
I do have one. I think the number I saw in there and what we discussed previously, what's the number in this particular contract?
I'm not.
15 streets, I don't remember the amount, right? We did talk about the potential of additional state funding being available, and I believe what we approved in terms of the budget itself was $1 million, and this isn't, I don't believe, close to that number. I want to say this is in the 300, 500,000, but I can't say 100%. So the question I would have is, when this bid is done and based on the advertisement, do we have an option to extend onto it for the additional funding that we provide or that the state may provide?
That would be up to council. We bring that back to you to either do an amendment to the existing bid or re-advertise it.
Okay.
For a separate bid. And Troy and his staff have a different approach to take to the state appropriated money once we get it and approved in the budget to use for more of the roads that are in pretty good shape, some alligator, so it's more topping type. Sure. But I will confer with Troy, but I think we can either extend it on to the existing contract, but that would require your approval. And then secondly, we potentially would want to rebid it for somebody that does that kind of work.
And the governor does have the funds in his version of the supplemental budget, which hasn't made it out of the House yet. But I think it sounds pretty good for those funds to stay in there, and it would be equivalent to what we received last year. And I apologize, I don't remember that number off the top of my head, but it was equal to what we typically get every year separately. So, say that, Cindy? Okay, good deal.
Yes, the governor put $250 million in his budget for this, so it's, that's an amazing thing he's done for 2 years. That's good for us. I'll defer to next week for some updates on what we're doing down on Church Street with Magical Way. If you recall, that is the property we purchased near the community where the distillery is, and we are doing some road improvements, some lighting improvements along Magical Way. And then we're also moving along with the brick enclosure for the dumpster, but I'll let Troy give a more complete report. And as well on the pedestrian bridge, but I can give you just a summary. We are working with Georgia Power and our contractor to relocate utilities on the north side of the bridge. We are hopeful that, there's a lot of others that are there as well, AT&T, Comcast, and others. But Georgia Power is the one that will be taking the lead, working with our contractor to relocate those utilities. We think that'll take about 2 to 3 weeks to get done. One thing I know that you've all mentioned about lighting at Ridge Lake Park, we are working on the design and future installation of solar lights at the golf course for the upper and lower parking lots. The purpose here, obviously, is for safety, but also to expand the use of the clubhouse for after-hours use and enhance the customer experience up there. So we can use it for things such as homeowners associations, but people may want to lease it out. But at nighttime, it was very dark up there, but we'll use solar lights up there. We're also using solar lights along the Hillcrest section of the Greenway that traverses through the Novair development. And then we also are placing solar lights at the entrance to Ridge Lake Park. And lastly, one of my updates would be that I know that several of you all have inquired about the work at Gary Perkle Park and stream bank stabilization. We are working on to prepare a grant application for submission for further work on the stream bank at the park, and these funds hopefully would be used to get additional funds through Gwinnett County. So we'll report more on that as we progress. But that concludes my report.
Right, and I think that's it, but I want to consult with somebody real fast about it. All right, we have no need for executive session tonight, but we will next Monday night. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Hicks. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Perkle. All those in favor of adjourning, raise your right hand. All right, we'll see everybody next Monday.